I'll begin tonight not with the crucifixion itself, but with the trial that led to the crucifixion. Bible scholar Walter Brueggemann sets the scene in this poignant way. On the one side is Pontius Pilate, the one we mention in the Creed. Pilate is the Roman governor who presides over the occupied territory of Galilee. He is a stand-in for Caesar and for Roman power. He appears at headquarters in all the pageantry of the empire. Likely he wore a sash of Roman authority. Maybe he entered the courtroom with drums and bugles and imperial flags flying. It is impressive drama. He is a perfect icon of great power. On the other side is Jesus, just Jesus. He has no credentials. He has no pedigree. He has neither a phalanx of lawyers nor any visible support. He is all alone in the courtroom. Arraigned because of his dangerous teaching, was seen as subversive of imperial authority. Jesus, however, is not intimidated by the Roman governor. He says to the governor, "My kingdom is not from this world." This does not mean that Jesus' kingdom is in the never land of the afterlife, nor does it mean that his kingdom is simply an internal psychological matter of being right with God. He means rather that his authority is not derived from Rome. He does not depend on the governor's validation because his authority is not from here. He owes Rome nothing. He did not depend on the imperial power of greed and violence, the imperial force of money, or the imperial claim of male power. Jesus confused the governor. Finally, the governor must ask, "What is truth?" The governor had lived so long with fake news that he did not know what to make of Jesus, who did not fit any of his categories. He has the sense that Jesus is the truth right in front of him, but he lacks the courage to recognize that truth lies outside the claims of empire, in the drama of mercy, compassion, and justice. End quote. So we have the setting in mind, as well as the power dynamics that are at play. And just as Pilate asks, "What is truth?" so must we. But I think we're conditioned quite deeply to avoid asking this kind of question. Indeed, it would be unseemly for an intellectually savvy person to pronounce conviction of a singular truth, because we have been taught that truth is multiple, relative, contextual, and it is. But here at Jesus' trial, as at the trial of any human person deserving of fairness and justice, decisions are made less on the basis of any coherent notion of truth and more on the dictates of worldview. And we know so well in these dark days that some worldviews tell a truer story than others, that some worldviews inspire greater justice than others, that some worldviews have a love ethic at their core, while other worldviews devalue love, care, and kindness. What is truth, then? Pilate is unable to plumb the depths of his own question, as he must make a decision promptly, and Jesus isn't making that decision particularly easy for him. With the benefit of hindsight, we wonder, why wouldn't Jesus do anything it took to avoid a verdict of capital punishment? Why wasn't Jesus willing to fudge the truth so that he could keep on teaching and healing and loving? To engage these questions, we'll hear from the brilliant Dominican theologian Herbert McCabe. I'll read at some length from one of his Good Friday homilies, asking your forgiveness for the masculine language he uses for God. McCabe asks, "Did God the Father want Jesus to be crucified? And if so, why? No. The mission of Jesus from the Father is not the mission to be crucified. What the Father wished is that Jesus should be human. Any minimally intelligent people who are proposing to become parents know that their children will have lives of suffering and disappointment and perhaps tragedy, but this is not what they wish for them. What they want is that they should be alive, be human. And this is what Jesus sees as a command laid on him by his Father in heaven. The obedience of Jesus to his Father is to be totally, completely human. This is his obedience, an expression of his love for the Father. The fact that to be human means to be crucified is not something that the Father has directly planned, but what we have arranged. We have made a world in which there is no way of being human that does not involve suffering. Jesus accepted the cross in love and obedience, and his obedience was to the command to be human. As I see it, not Adam, but Jesus was the first human being, the first member of the human race in whom humanity came to fulfillment. The first human being for whom to live was simply to love, for this is what human beings are for. The aim of human life is to live in friendship, a friendship amongst ourselves, which in fact depends on a friendship or covenant that God has established between ourselves and God. When we encounter Jesus, in whatever way we encounter him, he strikes a chord in us. We resonate with him because he shows the humanity that lies more hidden in us, the humanity of which we are afraid. He is the human being that we dare not to be. He takes the risks of love, which we recognize as risks, and so, for the most part, do not take. For this reason, we are afraid, and we settle for being less than human. We recognize that our very nature calls us to something new and frightening. It calls us to communication, which means self-giving, self-abandonment, and being at the disposal of others. We recognize, however dimly, that we are the kind of being that finds its fulfillment, its happiness and flourishing only in giving itself up, in getting beyond itself. We need to lose ourselves in love. This is what we fear. We are summoned simply from within ourselves to venture into what is unknown, to abandon what is familiar and safe and set out on a journey or quest. This is going to mean the loss of the personality that we think is complete. It means being reshaped in ways we could not predict beforehand, all in obedience to a summons we do not understand and cannot control. Of course, there is delight and wonder in this as the world becomes fresh and astonishing and all sorts of unexpected possibilities appear in ourselves. But there is always this background of risk, and we do not like to take this risk. Mostly we settle for what we are, what we have made of ourselves. We settle for the person that we have achieved or constructed. We settle for our own self-image because we are afraid of being made in the image of God. This failure to respond to the summons into life, this failure of faith, is called sin. Our greatest talents and creative powers turn against us in destruction unless they are in the service of love, unless they are used in obedience to this mysterious call to transcend ourselves. We cannot live without love, and yet we are afraid of the destructive, creative power of love. We need and deeply want to be loved and to love, and yet when that happens, it seems a threat, because we are asked to give ourselves up, to abandon ourselves. And so when we meet love, we kill it. So my thesis is that Jesus died of being human. His very humanity meant that he put up no barriers, no defenses against those he loved who hated him. He refused to evade the consequences of being human in our inhuman world. End quote. Jesus died of being human, McCabe argues. What an astonishing thesis. And what an incredibly rich vision what it means to be human. I want to be human in this way. Perhaps you do too. But I don't want to be crucified. None of us want to be crucified. And so we settle. And God weeps for this. For so much more is possible. So much better is possible. God is trying to show us through Jesus' death and resurrection that even if being human kills us, death isn't the worst that can happen to us. Not living into the fullness of our humanity, the full gift of our humanity, is a worse fate than death. It is a living death, in fact. Jesus shows us how to be human, which in its fullness includes an acceptance of the consequences of being human in an inhuman world. Most of us will never be quite as brave as Jesus. We are only human. But we humans are promised resurrection too, a promise that can kindle flickers of bravery, even in the most timid of souls. And of course, we know that in the words of the old song, it only takes a spark to get a fire going, and soon all those around can warm up to its glowing. That's how it is with God's love. Once you've experienced it, you spread God's love to everyone. You want to pass it on. May it be so.